What drives a man to invade the United States with just 600 followers? Pancho Villa had been betrayed, his revolution sold out by politicians in Washington. The Americans had chosen his enemy over him. Now, as Villa's men whispered "Viva Mexico" in the pre-dawn darkness of March 9th, 1916, they weren't just crossing a border, they were crossing a line that would drag America into its first mechanized military campaign and prove that even the mighty United States wasn't untouchable. Before we unwrap the story behind this battle, hit that like button and subscribe to never miss another tale from the Wild West. Columbus, New Mexico slept under a half moon on March 8, 1916. The desert town held a few hundred residents. Most had already shuttered their shops and retreated to their homes. Camp Furlong sat on the town's edge. The 13th Cavalry Regiment, over 350 troops were assigned to Camp Furlong, though many were away on patrol that night. Tonight felt like any other. Soldiers played poker in their tents, others wrote letters by lamplight. The guard rotation moved through its routine patrol. Villa's force crossed the border from the south into the Columbus area. Villa's scouts had scouted the area and reported a surprisingly small garrison, a key miscalculation. They knew the layout of Camp Furlong. They had counted the guards. They had identified the weak spots in the town's defenses. Villa chose Columbus for good reason. The town housed military supplies he desperately needed. More important, Villa felt betrayed after the U.S. recognized Carranza, shifting official American support away from him. American weapons now flowed to Villa's enemies. American diplomats treated Villa like a bandit instead of a revolutionary fighting for his people's freedom. Villa split his force into two groups. One would hit the military camp, the other would sweep through the town itself. His men checked their ammunition one final time. Some whispered prayers to the Virgin of Guadalupe. Others simply stared into the darkness ahead. The plan was simple: strike fast, grab weapons and supplies, send a message to Washington that Mexico would not be ignored, show the world that even American soil wasn't safe from those who fought for justice. Villa's men crept closer. The town remained silent. Soldiers slept in their bunks. Civilians dreamed peacefully in their beds. At about 4:15 a.m. on March 9th, the plan exploded into violence. Machine gunfire erupted from Camp Furlong as flames engulfed the commercial hotel. Columbus had become a battlefield lit by orange fire. Villa's men charged from two directions. "Viva Villa!" echoed through the streets. "Viva Mexico!" rang out as raiders stormed both the military camp and the town center. Their boots pounded against dirt roads as they spread through Columbus like wildfire. Lieutenant John P. Lucas jolted awake to gunshots. He ran barefoot through the camp, scrambling to assemble a defense. Soldiers stumbled out in their underwear, grabbing rifles and ammunition. Lucas shouted orders over the gunfire, trying to form a defensive line around the camp's center. The commercial hotel blazed against the night sky. Villa's men kicked down doors and smashed windows. Some looted the general store while others battled soldiers. Horses screamed in terror as bullets whined through the air. Townspeople grabbed shotguns and hunting rifles. They fired from second-story windows and doorways. Women and children were moved to the Hoover Hotel for safety as the battle raged around them. Civilians barricaded themselves in stores as raiders tried to break down doors. The 4 American machine guns opened fire with devastating effect. The weapons cut down Villa's men as they charged across open ground. Thousands of rounds poured from the machine gun positions during the 90-minute fight. Bodies fell in the street. The raiders' initial advantage began to crumble. Villa's surprise attack had worked at first. Now organized American resistance turned the tide. Soldiers found their rhythm. Civilians joined the fight with deadly determination. The raiders faced withering crossfire from multiple directions. Villa's men began falling back. Their leader had underestimated the fighting spirit of Columbus. The machine guns proved too effective, the defenders too stubborn. What started as a lightning raid became a grinding battle of attrition. Dawn broke over a transformed Columbus. Smoke drifted from burned buildings. Bodies lay scattered in the streets and around Camp Furlong. At least 63 of Villa's men were killed, with some estimates running higher. 18 Americans had died defending their town, 10 civilians and 8 soldiers. The desert sand had turned dark with blood. Villa himself had escaped into the mountains with his surviving men. But his raid on American soil would not go unanswered. Within days, General John J. Pershing received his orders. President Wilson wanted Villa captured, dead or alive. The United States had been attacked on its own soil. America would respond with overwhelming force. Pershing led a roughly 10,000-strong expedition into Mexico on March 15, 1916. Meanwhile, National Guard call-ups pushed border troop totals much higher, over 100,000 by August. This wasn't just about one revolutionary leader anymore. American pride was at stake. The world watched to see how the United States would handle this humiliation. The expedition experimented with Curtiss Jennies for reconnaissance and used motor trucks for supply, early examples of mechanized support that foreshadowed broader changes in warfare. These fragile biplanes puttered overhead as pilots searched for Villa's camps. On the ground, motorized vehicles handled logistics alongside traditional cavalry units. The age of mechanized warfare was taking shape. Villa vanished into the Sierra Madre Mountains like smoke. He knew every canyon and ridge. Local villagers fed his men and misdirected American patrols. The revolutionary had become a ghost haunting the desert. Pershing's massive force chased shadows and rumors. Mexican President Carranza protested the invasion. Diplomatic tensions reached a breaking point. War between the two nations seemed possible. Villa's small raid had triggered an international crisis that threatened to spiral beyond anyone's control. The irony was stunning. Villa had failed to capture significant weapons or supplies in Columbus, yet his attack had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. He had forced America to modernize its military overnight. The United States Army was transforming itself in real time. Pershing learned hard lessons in the Mexican desert. Logistics mattered more than firepower. Intelligence networks proved crucial. Mechanized units needed different tactics than cavalry. These lessons would serve him well when America entered World War I. The hunt continued for nearly a year. Villa remained free. His support among the Mexican people never wavered. American forces grew frustrated. The desert yielded no victories, only sand and endless miles of empty landscape. Diplomatic protests from Carranza and the prospect of U.S. entry into World War I pushed Wilson to recall the expedition by early 1917. Pershing's army returned home empty-handed. Tactically, the raid was a disaster for Villa. Strategically, it forced the U.S. into an expensive modernizing effort that changed army practices. But what did Villa's raid really accomplish? Villa's raid on Columbus had failed by every military measure. He captured no significant weapons. He lost at least 63 men. He retreated into the mountains empty-handed. Yet history would prove this defeat was actually his greatest victory. The raid is remembered as the last invasion of the continental United States by a foreign army. Villa proved that even the United States could be touched by those willing to fight for their cause. Columbus sits at an odd crossroads, one of the last Old West-style raids, and an early example of mechanized support that foreshadowed modern warfare. Quick use of machine guns, rapid basic organization by officers like Lieutenant Lucas, and civilians who fired from windows denied Villa the swift, clean victory he sought. Columbus paid a heavy price, but the town's defense altered military history. If you enjoyed this Old West story, hit that subscribe button for more forgotten tales of courage and conflict.